actually not the same thing. Goals are a unit of strategy. Features are a unit of business value, value to a user, value to a customer. Functions are a unit of capability, capability of the system, capability of the solution. And tasks are a unit of work. And one of the things that I want to make a claim to you is that in Agile for the enterprise, all four of these kinds of things are all interesting to us when we talk about planning. And in particular, if we're not moving upwards to talking about business goals and features, if we can't make backlogs of business goals and features, then I can't talk to you about product management, product line management, business strategic planning. And if I can't show a continuity from goals all the way down to tasks, if I can't make it completely normal and accepted in my business that you can always ask this question, why are we doing this? In Agile and Lean, it should always be legal to ask this question. Why are we doing this? Very often we have a hard time with it. If I do not have traceability all the way up to this level, if I do not have planning all the way down from this level, I don't have an enterprise-grade process. So that's the program. Starting with a couple of little nits. That a story is not quite what we thought. A story is a unit of scope. A story is something in a backlog. Then differentiating it between fuzzy and concrete, epic and actionable. And last, that there are four different kinds of things. We have goals, we have features, we have functions, we have tasks. We have the objectives we have for the business, the strategy level. We have what those resolve into that are units of value to the customer that will realize that particular goal and advance it. We have then the functions that we provide in the application that actually realize the feature. The feature is what somebody wants to do. The function is how they can do that. Sensible? And then there must be tasks, which is breaking those things down into specific things that a developer and a tester can actually do to help realize that. If you don't have this process, if you don't have this hierarchy, you really can't talk about planning. And in the Agile world, this is planning. It is also analysis. This hierarchy. And last week when I was talking with my client, they kind of grinned at me about halfway through the presentation. They said, that looks an awful lot like a waterfall. And I said, no, we don't use that word. It's a cascade. It's a nice little cascade of refinement. Refinement and elaboration. Refinement to make something more concrete, to make it actionable. Elaboration, to translate it from one level of detail to the next lower level of detail. To go from one goal to the set of features that actually embody that particular goal. If I can satisfy those features, I will advance that goal. To go from the level of features to the set of functions I have to provide in order to provide that feature so that the person can do that generic kind of activity. I consider that to be pretty natural. But more importantly, I consider it to be essential. Question?
Yeah, during this process, will you be doing any scoping and prioritization?
Absolutely. And that's in fact what this entire exercise is all about, is about different kinds of scoping that you do along the way, and the different ways that you have to refine things down to the point where you can then write them up as a card and then prioritize by shuffling the cards. You have to make them unitary, discrete, before you can actually prioritize. They have to be in units, and this is all about how do you actually identify the level of the unit and what does it mean to make it actionable. And then I can talk about shuffling. And the whole topic of prioritization is a whole specialist topic unto itself. I decided not to go there. I hope I'm making a little bit of sense. Go ahead, please.
So one of the issues that's often been talked about is the fact that you say, you turn an actionable goal into, you elaborate into epic features, which becomes an but you may well find that your elaboration was not complete at the point when you start
Correct.
The next stage.
That's
I
correct.
don't see any feedback in that.
Yeah, there is feedback, and as with the traditional waterfall diagrams, I don't show you all the little arrows, otherwise it gets, a little bit more confusing, but do not assume that this is a one pass through kind of thing. You're quite right. There's feedback functions. There's also just simply out of the ether, you suddenly get a new idea. Okay, so there's even arrows coming in from the outside. It just gets too messy as I try to drive. You're quite correct. There are feedback loops in this. The one I'm trying to give you is this. A small little digression. This does build the foundation for the topic of traceability. An old, hoary topic, a topic that many Agilists would rather say, oh, that's old-fashioned. No, it's critical to that one question. Why are we doing this? If you don't know why you're doing it, stop doing it. That's a good Agile and lean practice. You must always know why you're doing things, otherwise you have the great risk of actually inducing waste. And traceability is all about why. Why am I doing this particular task? Well, that task is, part of producing this function. That function is part of satisfying that particular feature. That feature is part of advancing that goal. And so traceability is an interesting topic in the Agile world. In fact, a vital topic in the enterprise Agile world. Because continuity of planning, as we'll talk about in just a second, I'm going to make the case that continuity in planning is one of the most interesting, fascinating, vital, worth the effort things that you get out of enterprise Agile. This notion of continuity of planning. But it also gives us a very crisp definition of done. If you're at all familiar with the Agile community and some of its literature, you know that with tongue-in-cheek, we have a tendency to talk about done, done, and done, done, done. Done is, I satisfy the acceptance criteria on the back of the card, and it passes the tests. Done is, I have shown it to the customer during a demo, and they haven't written up any new cards. They haven't said, oh, now that I see that, that's not quite right, sorry, and written up a few more cards. So it passes the customer's need test. That's done. And done is when they write the check at the end and say your project's done. And they're happy with you. But doneness, actually it's somewhat harder than it looks. But if we have this kind of traceability tree, then it becomes actually quite precise, mathematically precise. I'm done with any one of these different stories, whether it's at the task feature, task function feature or goal level. I'm done with the story when I'm done with the children. When I finish these two children, I got credit for that node, but I haven't yet gotten credit for that feature because I haven't finished this. When I do finish that, then I'll get credit for the feature. Here, I need to finish this before I get credit for that. I need to finish this before I get credit for this, and then for that. Definition of done now becomes mathematically precise. And for an old mathematician, that's actually important. But in practice, if you're actually trying to build and run an enterprise which has hundreds of thousands of clients, tens of thousands of developers, and we have clients that literally have 15 to 20,000 developers. We routinely have clients that have thousands of developers. In that particular situation, figuring out when you're done, when you have a project that entails 300 to 400 different developers across 3 different product lines, and you need to come to market, figuring out done is not a trivial exercise. When are you ready to go to market? This gives you a sound basis for that. And so what we're doing is we're trying to